All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Culture and Decay here on the Swampcast Network. Tonight, I am joined by my good buddy from the Hornburger days, Mr. Ryan Bunting.
Always a pleasure.
Hell yeah. We got a lot to get into here tonight. Originally, I was going to jump on here and make an announcement, but honestly, after talking with some folks, I'm going to hold off a week. So we'll see how this ends up going. But and with the situation in Mass,
he's deciding if he's trans or not.
Well, of course.
We're all struggling with our gender identity. So
I identify as Zer. So just identify me with the right pronouns, or I'll cancel you.
My pronouns are my Lord and His Majesty.
I am the Apache helicopter. All right, no, but we'll see about that. It's a Libertarian Party related thing. We'll see. It should be fun. But anyways, Ryan. For those of you who don't know, Ryan here is an author and do you want me to talk about something? Everything. Yeah, it seems
author, game designer, graphic designer. Yeah, I dabble in everything.
Right on, brother. We're gonna get into a lot here. So I got to ask you the two questions that I've asked everyone who comes on here. Number one, what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Ooh, that's a great question. Damn. Because, see, and that's a tough question because it's all relative. There's a lot of conspiracies currently that are pretty spicy, but honestly, I'm gonna go for I don't know, maybe this is a cop out, but QAnon was just absolutely fucking hysterical.
Okay, so with Q, the funny thing with that is I still have never met a Q person, but I really want to meet a Q person.
I have. It's a dude from a part of Germany that just like fully believes all this stuff, and I mean like sent me like links and articles and all this crazy shit, and it was some of the most entertaining stuff I have ever read in my entire life.
Well, I can see what you're talking about because I've only experienced one QAnon article, and it was the one after the election, the story of the SEALs getting into the shootout with the CIA in Germany over election servers. I remember I was reading this like, fuck, man, I hope this is true. This sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's why I love the Q conspiracy so much, is because like it is so obviously just like weaponized redaction, but at the same time it is just massively entertaining.
You can't help but marvel.
Yeah, you can't help but marvel at the fact, like, one, somebody crafted this theory, and like it's kind of like it's like a collective work of art. There's multiple people contributing all these little things. Like one person will draw this insane connection. And what's impressive is that they do a really good job of making those connections, where you read it and you're like, damn, that almost makes sense. And then somebody else builds on top of that, and that's how it basically just becomes like a 4chan thread if 4chan wasn't full of degenerate psychopaths.
I mean, when I first did go down that rabbit hole, some of the things that I saw, I was like, ooh, that's pretty interesting. But then it just kind of fizzled out when I realized that there were other things that were being predicted that just did not pan out at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll turn off the tunes there. But so for the follow-up question to that then, what conspiracy would you not be surprised to learn is true?
That 9/11 was an inside job.
Really?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to learn if that was just like completely true.
Any specific inside job theory, or just like any of them if they turned out to be very good?
In general, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, like once you like, especially after this whole COVID nonsense, and just, I mean, you can watch it on television. You can see the asinine nonsense that the media spits out. Um, like I wouldn't be surprised if it was a false flag to be like, yeah, we need to go to war, even though the people we went to war with after that had nothing to do with that attack. Um, we know what the government's capable of. That's why we're here.
Yeah,
that's why we're in this autistic bubble of people, because we know what the government is capable of. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that 9/11 was an inside job. I don't have any like firm belief one way or the other on that. I'm just kind of like, it happened. People died. Some personally that I know passed away in that attack.
sorry.
So I don't I don't, yeah, I don't count out the probability that it was something orchestrated by the government. And then there's also like a chance it could have just been, I don't know, some people, they hated us for our freedoms.
Yeah. Well, when I first got into this movement, I was more willing to accept some of the outlandish 9/11 theories. But like, oh, there's our bots coming in finally.
Oh, yep. There's the
But
first bot.
anyways, with 9/11 theories, I when I was younger, I was more willing to accept the absurd. But now, as time has gone on, the more I think about it, the more I think it might be like Pearl Harbor, where you do everything to kind of lure them in there to make this happen, so you have the excuse.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, shit, FDR took battleships out of Pearl Harbor. What was it? I'm sorry, aircraft carriers out of Pearl Harbor. What was it, like days before the whole thing?
Days before the attack. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why in this situation, I think that that's probably the more likely thing.
Hmm.
But at the same time, much like you, I wouldn't be surprised either if they did try to do
Yeah.
something like
Well,
that.
I
So
mean, if you remember, I think it was during like the Clinton presidency, like Al Qaeda, the organization, had like attempted to bomb, I think, the New York subway, and he did nothing about it. And then it was years later during the Bush presidency that this attack happened. So I mean, like the signs were there, so they probably saw that and they were like, "Ooh, we could use this. Let's make something happen."
gotcha. Yeah, it's a crazy thing to look back on, and you being from the Northeast, I know you probably have a entirely different story from mine.
Oh yeah, I mean, like everyone's got their like, where were you? What were you doing? I was in seventh grade history class. It was wild. Um, yeah, I mean, like a bunch of kids I went to school with that were older, that had graduated, had gotten jobs there. They got clapped. Um, my best friend's brother had like turned his life around, got a job there. He actually got out and then went back in to try and get more people out, and he never came out after that. Like he got out, called his family and said, "Hey, I'm good, but like I'm going to go, like I got to go see if I can get anybody else out." And he never came out after that.
It's tragic. Sorry.
It is.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Oof.
Which is why fucking cop Mala Harris being like, uh, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and January 6th. Some of the most horrible events in American history.
God, it's just the audacity of them trying to make that into what they want it to be so badly is in a way it's entertaining to watch them fail miserably into trying to make this into something more than it is.
Yeah.
I
But
was
they're not failing with their audience, which is the worst part. Like I have like some friends and family members that are like diehard, liberal types.
blue pilled.
And yeah, oh, like yeah, they took the whole bottle. And I mean, when it was happening, just seeing the kind of crap they were saying on social media, and it's like, dude, are you out of your mind? Like, did you see that like cute little granny with her little flag, and she was like, "Oh, I'm at the Capitol."
Well, that was
My joke about that whole thing is that a senior citizens tour bus got lost on its way to Atlantic City, and they accidentally ended up at the Capitol, and that was that's why that whole thing happened.
the best thing to come out of that was the tweet from that one communist: "Never send a boomer to do a Bolshevik's job." Where it was just like, these are the actual people who believe in an insurrection who are looking at this thinking, seriously?
Yeah,
Like that, what does that say? Like that that's
yeah.
that's the funny thing. Oh man. Anyway, man. I'm just gonna move on to our next topic here and kind of segue into some of the stuff I have here to talk about, and mainly it's just the state of Hollywood and everything going on. I'm sure you heard that the Golden Globes were not televised this year, and I heard about that. But then this new poll came out. I know this is the post millennial, but still, bear with me. And
Post
80% of
millennial is actually a pretty decent
you think they're a good
source,
one? I'm
all
just
things considered. Like compared to what's out there, yeah,
I'm just so black pilled on all the media outlets
all
that
media. I
it's
don't
hard
blame you.
if you're not Tim Pool or the Lotus Eaters or We Are Change. I'm pretty out of the tune with it. But 80% of Americans believing that our culture is in a state of decay, basically. And would you think that's a white pill? When I first saw this headline, I thought maybe that's a sign of something good because that means people are looking at the crap that's out there in the culture widely right now and saying this isn't good.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, another thing that I thought is, what if this is just both sides of the culture war looking at the other side, thinking they're the problem?
yeah, and there's probably an unhealthy mixture of both. Whether I would perceive this as a white pill or a black pill honestly depends on the day, because some days I'm like super white pilled and some days I'm like black pilled collapsitarian. I get whiplash every day because like ever since this whole crisis lasted more than, you know, a few months, it was like, yeah, this is bigger than, 2 weeks of businesses being shut down. And yeah, so it kind of varies. But I think in this case, in regards to this article, it's probably a mixture of both. um, I have seen anecdotally some people within my circle that normally would not have an opinion remotely close to mine. But I've actually had people message me privately that were like, dude, you were 100% spot on in March of 2020. And what do I do now? Like, I've had people come to me because I was like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. You're being lied to. And, I got called the Science denier and all that kind of stuff. And now, like, Project Veritas just came out with this video. I think it's the first in a series about the shit with the Beagle Brutalizer. So like, yeah, they're like, some people are starting to see.
The Beagle Brutalizer. Are you talking about the guy who criticized all the gay people for spreading AIDS?
Yes, yes, that guy.
Ah, yeah. People forget about that stuff.
Yeah, um,
Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't mean.
that fucking scumbag. Yeah, there are people that used to like basically simp for this dude that I have seen come around and flip on that. At the same time, I've also seen people just completely double down and they're like, science is constantly changing. So, we have to just accept it for what it is with what we know. And it's like, yeah, like science changes. That's why we don't use bloodletting to cure colds anymore. That's why we don't, prescribe cocaine for headaches. But if you're considering like the less than 2 year span of time that the science has said one thing, backpedaled on that, then went back to saying the other thing, then backpedaled on that, and flip flopped 8,000 times over in this short a period of time. It's not science, it's fucking propaganda.
Yeah.
And some people are realizing that, some people aren't. The good thing is that regardless, some people are. And those people are moving away from that whole cult of, CDC is God, that whole thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's it's funny how I've noticed that there's two types of people that I've noticed emerge from the last 2 years almost. There have been a lot of people who I knew from high school or whatever who always regarded me as the crazy anarchist kid, who I'm now noticing who have really woken up to a lot of stuff, and that's just it's fascinating to see. Um, some in particular, I was absolutely amazed that they had the views that they do now. But then on the other hand, it's one of those things like I go into work and I see my coworker coming in with 2 masks every day, and I'm just like, the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I was really lucky. The place that I most recently worked at, and actually just left recently because the workload was awful, and I had a side business that I'm now making my main business. So I left that job, but the people there, like, pretty much everyone was like, fuck that jab and fuck all this nonsense. It's all bullshit. So it was like really nice to have coworkers that weren't going to look at me like I was nuts, because I was like, yeah, I'm not wearing a mask and I'm not taking any nonsense. Um, I mean, it was Delco, so like that probably has something to do with it. Anyone that's from or near or lives around Delco knows exactly what I mean when I say it was Delco. Um, but it was nice, and I think that spread, that divide of like people who are waking up and people who are simping for it, like I think it's becoming much more clear now. Like the one dude I worked with, his mom worked for Boeing up the street, which is they have a massive headquarters in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and like I mean, she makes an incredible living, has a good job, benefits, pension, like the whole nine. Boeing does not mess around. They were starting to do like, oh, you have to be jabbed by this date, otherwise you're let go. Well, like she rallied a whole bunch of people, and they were like, "Yeah, absolutely not." And then they were like, "Okay, well, we're just gonna recommend that you get it." So people are fighting back in palpable ways, and that's good to see. But you still have the Sims,
Yeah.
and now the Sims are doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, because these are the kind of people that would rather die under the boot of absolute oppression and tyranny before they admit that they were lied to and that they were wrong for believing it.
Well, I mean, in many ways, those are the type of people I fear too.
Oh, absolutely.
I see them
Absolutely.
as Winston's neighbor's son from 1984. If you remember that scene, his neighbor's son from the book at all. His neighbor in the book, I cannot remember the character's name for the life of me, but he's the one who's like blindly loves the party. He always is like, "Oh, the party is so great. The party does Ing Sunk does so much for us." Blah blah blah. And eventually in the book, um, his son rats him out to the Ministry of Love, to where when Winston is being tortured in the Ministry of Love, eventually he runs into this character who thinks that he must have done something wrong still, because clearly there's something wrong with me because I thought I loved him, but clearly I didn't. And, like these are the type of people who I see being that character and his son.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're the ones who have the
Absolutely.
most potential at doing that. Like if the government said go round up, go turn in everyone who doesn't get the jab tomorrow, these would be the first people who would turn in their family members. Like that's
And I
like
know a handful of people like that, and I fear them
get out of the
because
city,
of that.
bro.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully I'm not in the city, but I would like to get further away from them. Philly's still too close.
Yeah, I don't blame you in that case. Philly's an interesting city, but anyways,
That's a polite way of describing Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I'll be honest, I've never been. I
It's
don't
an
really know anything
interesting.
about it.
You're missing nothing.
Other than I've been told, apparently going to that city, if you've seen It's Always Sunny, imagine an entire city of people like that.
Yeah, except like cartoonishly worse.
My
Like
God.
cartoonishly worse. Yeah. I mean, like they're like Always Sunny is great because it's funny. It's funny for everybody, and it's especially funny for people that are familiar with the greater Philadelphia area. Because like the characters in the show are archetypes and caricatures of like the standard Philly resident, but the standard Philly resident in real life is just astronomically worse than those characters.
So they went nice in that show.
Yeah, they actually paint a better picture than what's actually realistic. Philly is good for like two things. The first being metal concerts. If you like metal bands play there all the time. Because you got like the Troc, Electric Factory, and UArts, which are fucking spectacular venues. Tons of great shows there, and like they've got some pretty good food. And like the whole Pat's Geno's things, if you ask anyone that lives around Philly, Pat's and Geno's are both trash. You're better off going to like Jim's on South Street, or like there's a handful of other places that are just way better. Like the Pat's and Geno's are tourist bullshit. Outside of that, Philly does not have much. It doesn't have much. It's a nightmare. It's dirty. It smells like hell. Like I visited Pittsburgh. I was in a video game documentary years ago, and we went to Pittsburgh to film. And Pittsburgh is like the nicest city. It's clean. Everyone was super polite. Like Pittsburgh is amazing.
The name Pitt is in the name.
Yeah, right.
It is literally in the name.
Yeah, and I think Philly should be the pit because Pittsburgh is actually dope.
Goddamn Pittsburgh. All right. Well, before it's talking to our next topic, I just want to kind of hop in here and give a little word from our sponsors. Check out Drip Cannabinoids. Familiar with CBD? Well, now there's Delta 8. And what does Delta 8 do that CBD can't do? It gets you high. So go check out Drip Cannabinoids. Use code word Mitch to get 10% off at checkout. Drip is one of the best ones out there. We sell things like vape cartridges, gummies, capsules, you name it, we got it. Go check it out. Use code word Mitch at checkout. Get 10% off. Help this show out. Help keep the lights on. And yeah, go get yourself a little stoned. All right.
Legally,
Legally, of course. Legally, mind you. Legally, mind you. It's really just recording that. At this
Listen,
point.
I'm all about freedom, as long as it's legal.
As long as it is legal, as long as it's within the confines of the law. And clearly, we're all good Christian boys here, so we would not want to violate any sort of laws or anything like that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
No. But going back to what we were talking about before with in regards to just the culture of the way people have been reacting to the news and stuff like that. The reason why I brought that up and brought up kind of the Golden Globes as well is because there seems to be an interesting thing going on with dynamic going on with Hollywood right now, where just the culture of it just seems to be rotting, and we're kind of almost watching its implosion happen before our eyes. Like, I can only assume the reason they did not air the Golden Globes was because of two reasons. The absolute contempt that the common man, including people like us, have towards the Hollywood elites. And frankly, they probably just don't want to risk another Ricky Gervais moment.
Yeah, I think Ricky has a lot to do with that. And the other thing is that they know that they have the cover of the Omicron variant. They can use that as the scapegoat, and they can be like, well, we didn't want to bring all these people in for production and put it out there because we just wanted to keep people safe. That has been the excuse for everything, since the start of this whole goddamn thing. So they knew they had the cover, and they knew that they could use that to avoid another Ricky Gervais, and they could also avoid the fact that their ratings would have been absolute garbage anyway. Because over the past almost 2 years, award shows have aired and their ratings were like a fraction of what they previously were. And that's not to say that they weren't already on a downward trend, because it turns out people don't give a fuck. I
Well,
don't
yeah,
I don't care about what award some director wins or
well,
some
that's
movie wins. Like, I've never really cared.
yeah, and clearly we should all celebrate Roman Polanski. But for those of you who don't know about him, just go Google it. You'll know why.
Yeah, just go right to his Wikipedia page and
Right to his Wikipedia
you'll
page.
find it.
You'll
Like,
know
it's
exactly what we are talking about.
yeah, just look for controversy and it'll come right up. Yeah.
But
And
no,
you
no, it's
you
like
can do that with pretty much anyone in Hollywood.
at this point, I'm pretty sure there's very few people who are clean in that city. But what
Yeah.
you're noticing is even like a lot of Hollywood films are just bombing like crazy, and I've just been noticing. You have this, for instance, you have that one movie that just came out. I think it's like 355 or something like that, and I am just seeing just how much it's bombing before me. I didn't even know it existed until the other
Oh,
day.
is that the one about
The spy
it was
film,
like Agent
diverse.
yeah, it was like Agent 355. It was like a female spy during the revolution, and they're turning that into um
Girl power.
like a girl power archetype, yeah.
And
And of
in many ways,
course they have an extremely we are a diverse and an inclusive group of spies, because obviously we can't have a white spy without a black spy, and you can't have a black spy without an Asian spy,
you got to have
because
the
there are
black British woman.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got a YouTube ad for that, and I was doing the dishes at the time and couldn't skip the ad, so I learned more about that film than I would have ever cared to. Yeah, so that is absolutely happening. These movies are bombing, especially like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has
Yeah, what's
like
the deal with that? I've just kind of tuned out from Marvel.
yeah, I tuned out from Marvel after Iron Man 1. I stopped caring all the way back then, and people haven't shut the fuck up about them for over a decade. But basically, what's what's happening, and I forget where I heard this theory from. Oh, it was Razor Fist. Um, Razor Fist made an amazing observation in that they are purposefully taking the things that we used to use for entertainment, movies, like Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park. It wasn't like, oh man, those damn liberals are putting their nonsense into my goddamn dinosaur movie.
No, it's just
And
a little.
the liberals weren't like, why did they abort the embryos in Jurassic Park? There was none of that, because movies were escapist, they were entertainment. It was one of the few avenues that people would actually come together on. And for those who don't know, Razor Fist one has a spectacular channel. His rants are fucking incredible. He's hilarious. But I believe he was a political science major. He's also an anarchist. He's not an anarcho
Is he
hyphenate.
an anarchist?
Yeah, he's and as far as I know, he's not an anarcho hyphenate. I don't believe he subscribes to any particular economic model. Although, from what I gather, he's not a fan of collectivist ideologies or their ilk. Um, but he was saying that this is a purposeful act by the left, because we know that the left controls Hollywood. They pretty much always have. Um, and they control the media. So what they're doing is they are taking our only outlets for escapism. Films, video games are kind of coming up right behind Hollywood. They're taking these and they are purposefully sucking all of the joy out of them so that there is no option. That's why every movie is just shoehorned with woke bullshit that doesn't need to be there. Like, look at the Witcher Netflix series. For anyone that's familiar with the Witcher source material, right? Like, I read all the books, they're spectacular. The Witcher series does not need a strong, independent woman shoehorned into it because Yennefer is already that. Desaya de Vries is already that.
Triss Marigold is already that.
No, Triss Marigold is a raggedy rapist piece of shit. Even
That's
in the
the
books, I
series
mean,
you will
she's
talk about.
she's shitting herself in the woods, and she's like, "Geralt, once I
Anyway,
wipe, will
anyway,
you do me?"
you
Like,
left that too open for the joke, but anyway.
yeah, but yeah, like that series didn't need to have strong, independent women forced into it because they're literally the centerpieces. Like, the series is called The Witcher, and it's about Geralt, but Ciri and Yennefer are massive um, characters within that entire story. Like, it could be argued that
Well, they're
Ciri
very
is ultimately the true main character of the series.
well in many ways. Series, there's nothing you really have to change in regards to Ciri's evolution as a character, too. I mean, you'd think that alone would be something that would draw people in. But mind you, these are the same people who ignore the fact that Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor were great, strong female protagonists without having to be
Ellen
ideological.
Ripley is like the epitome. Like, and she's such a great example because they didn't have to write Ripley as a woman to make her a good character. She was already a good character. She just happened to be a woman. And her motherly instinct with the hell is the little girl's
Newt,
name?
Newt.
Newt. Her motherly instinct with Newt felt natural. It didn't, like, I didn't feel like I was being browbeaten with, like, oh, women are good sometimes. Like, it was just a good character. And
Well, it's a good
that day
character
and
that
age just vanished.
well, it's a good character, but it's not one that you're thinking this is because they are a woman because they are this. It's because you have seen this person go through hell in the first film. In the second film, you learn that her entire life she knew before is gone, and here she has an opportunity to redeem herself. It goes beyond even just what she is. And I
Yeah,
think that's a problem with a
absolutely.
lot of the woke stuff is it's very surface level, You'll notice
It's
that all the time.
obvious.
It is so
Yeah.
obviously surface level. Like props to a friend of mine who made a joke about the box that they all check in Hollywood that they don't admit that they actually check, which is the diversity check box of like, okay, we need this type of person, we need this type of person, need a black, need an Asian, need a gay person,
Mm-hmm.
like all the boxes. Um, and it's this sort of thing that I think is also kind of watering down the art of film because no longer is film an art that involves a producer, a director, and a team of people, including actors and actresses. Now it's something that almost feels like something on a fucking factory assembly line. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was
just
just gonna say it's like it's factory farming for films.
go look at the Marvel credit scenes. Like, I it looks like a Vietnam War memorial. Like it literally does. Like I couldn't. Since we're already mentioning other YouTubers, that was too easy. But really, with the whole thing, it's like I went back and have you ever seen the movie The Deer Hunter?
Yeah,
Amazing movie.
yeah,
Anyone listening,
spectacular.
if anyone listening has not seen The
With
Deer
more deer
Hunter,
hunting than the deer hunter.
go. If anyone listening has not watched The Deer Hunter, go watch The Deer Hunter. For the love of God, it is a great movie. Do you know any of the stories behind how certain things in that movie were filmed?
No, actually, it's one of the few films that I absolutely love that I didn't go on a Wikipedia deep dive into.
I didn't know about this
Strangely
until.
enough.
Strangely enough, this has been one of my favorite war films for a long time, and somehow I did not know what I'm about to tell you until just a few days ago. So, there's the two famous Russian roulette scenes, the one that takes place with the Viet Cong and the American POWs, and the other one that takes place in the middle of Vietnam in some underground thing. And apparently, it's the same guy playing the same. It's the same not Vietnamese, but Thai, because I believe they filmed this in Thailand.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same Thai guy smacking the American actors in both scenes. It's basically the same guy. They just kind of dress him up for different situations. The reason for this is because when they went to Thailand, they were trying to find the perfect actor who could play the Russian roulette guy in these scenes. And every Thai actor they got just was not convincing and smacking around the actors. So eventually they got word of this one guy in town who really hates foreigners. So they basically went to him and said, "We're going to pay you to
To
smack."
smack foreigners?
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that's great about this. You get genuine reactions from like Christopher Walken and De Niro in the film when they're getting smacked. Like you can actually see them getting annoyed with this guy. Like it's pretty, but it's like that sort of genuine reaction. Another scene, for example, spoiler alert, even though I've just kind of spoiled a little bit of that.
The
When
movie's been out for how
it's
long?
been out
Like,
since the '70s. If you haven't go see it,
yeah,
go fucking see
yeah,
it. But
yeah.
at one point they throw the one guy in the cage in the lake, and he starts screaming like, "Oh my god, there's rats in here!" Like that was real. They actually threw that actor in there. Like a lot of those really fucked up scenes, they put the actors in some really like it's only what I can describe as close you could go to the edge without going into snuff with still keeping it fake. Like
Yeah,
they really like that thing of him screaming like there's rats in here, give me the fuck, like that's actually his reaction because they were actually rats in there.
that's amazing.
So like there's little
And
things like
it's
that.
it's
I
yeah,
just don't.
it's funny we mentioned Alien because like in the original Alien, the chestburster scene, none of the actors knew what was happening. They were just like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna hang out at this table, and someone's gonna have like a problem." They didn't know that this creature was gonna come out of their chest. So all of those reactions you see from the actors are genuine. That's genuine fear that they filmed, and it made that scene that much more poignant. So and now thinking back after you just told me that, like though it makes sense. It makes sense.
But like I see that sort of stuff out there in like some of these old filmmaking, and I almost wonder if you could even do that type of shit today.
Oh, absolutely not.
You know, like
Absolutely not.
there's so
Like
many things that it's like I feel like if you were to do that, you would probably get the fucking Screen Actors Guild on you or some shit.
the Film Actors Guild.
Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, Film Actors Guild.
Yeah, whatever.
FAG. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know. I've heard a lot of weird shit about them, so I ain't a fan of unions. What can I say?
Yeah, neither am I.
But
But yeah, and again, it's because of this culture shift. Like nowadays, we have Brie Larson, where it's like, "Don't send a boy to do a woman's job. I'm Captain Marvel," and it's just like, okay, I get it. Men are evil and horrible, whatever. Like, and that's another thing with modern films is that like you're not being entertained, you're being browbeaten about how much of a piece of shit you are. You're a
well,
piece of shit for being male or white or straight or whatever curse you were given.
I noticed that
You're being assaulted for that instead of just like, here's a fun action movie.
quite early on in the Force in not the Force Awakens, but the Last Jedi was the what you were talking about there, where every man is stupid and every woman is so great.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole movie basically begins out with Poe making an ass of himself because men are horrible, and some brave woman pilot sacrificing herself in what I can only describe as one of the most impractical starships I've ever seen in that
Oh
universe.
yeah, purple hair Laura Dern.
No, not
Yeah.
her. There was another one, another woman that I don't even think had a name other than everyone's favorite character, Rose Tico, was her sister.
Oh yeah.
Like, but yeah, no, Admiral Gender Studies. Yeah, that's a whole nother character of just someone who's poorly written, and that's a whole nother thing. I feel like someone in Hollywood has a bet with someone where they're convinced it's like, listen, I'm going to write a character who is absolutely terrible, make sure that the audience hates them, do everything possible to make sure that the audience will despise and detest this character. And then somewhere around three-fourths of the way in, I'm just going to flip the script and expect everyone to like them.
Well, they're trying to shortcut a redemption arc, basically.
Yeah, you
Um,
can't get that in one story like that, especially
yeah,
when this person has demonstrated to you that they are not a good character. I have been rooting against them.
yeah, but they're trying to shortcut that, and then when fans are like, "This character sucked," they can just blame whatever ism or innie or whatever.
Racism, misogyny, sexism, white nationalism, you stupid man babies. Star Wars
Yeah,
isn't for you anymore. Get over it. I mean that
Star Wars isn't for you; it's for children. Okay, well, if it's for children, then kids have
if it's for
dog shit
children,
taste.
if it's for children, then I want to see the kids trying to watch the Senate scenes from the prequels.
Yeah, right.
Like that's what I always tell people. It's like that shit was like so even when I was a kid, that stuff was hard to get through. Like
Or like the 40 minutes of pod racing in episode 1 that should have
okay,
been
that was cool.
5.
That was cool. I liked that as a kid. I liked it as a kid, like it's weird
Look, I
since
won't lie, I owned Star Wars episode 1 pod racer on the N64. I had
since
it.
since Disney got its grummy little tentacles all over Star Wars, I really have come to appreciate George Lucas a lot more. It's like filmmaking is such like a film. It's a collaborative thing. Like you notice how when I talked about film, I brought up it being a producer, a director, a team of people, actors, all that. The reason why I say that is because look at the masterpieces that were the original Star Wars. That was George, but there was also a team of people there to be like, okay, George, let's reel that in a bit. Let's not go too crazy there.
And it
Let's
was a team of people making the puppets and
yeah.
rotoscoping the lightsabers onto
But
each animation cell. But it was people making creative decisions to help, yeah, rein in some
exactly.
of his.
But with the prequels, you kind of just let George go nuts, and with that, it got kind of too crazy, and I think that's what happened. And then with the sequels, they cut George out entirely, and all you got was this corporate crap. Which
Yeah,
that's the whole thing about this wokeness stuff
that's
too.
all that
It's
film is
corporate.
nowadays, is corporate crap.
Well, that's why I titled this episode "Take Back the Indies" because frankly, I think we
Yeah,
need to take back all the indies.
yeah, it's, and like, I wish there were more independent films coming out. Like, I can't, if I had to think back to what, like, the
For too
last,
long, I'm sorry, I
what,
don't mean to interrupt, but for too long, the independent film festivals like Sundance and all this shit has been basically occupied by the Hollywood elitists. These are supposed to be independent film festivals. People need to fucking get some shit in there, and like we
yeah,
just need to take back the indies. Like this should be the place that we should thrive.
yeah,
And libertarians for a long time, it seemed like I'm not gonna lie, it seemed like we were kind of doing the worst artistically. But now I'm
yeah,
kind of noticing things changing a little bit more and more, and I'm a little bit more optimistic for what we could really do. And I don't know. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry to kind of derail that and go.
No, no, no. That's still perfectly to my point. Yeah, because, like, we have to change the culture, and, like, you're not going to change the culture by sharing a fucking taxation is theft meme in 2022. Like,
No.
that's not convincing anyone. Like, it might be funny, it might be like a well-made meme, but that's not going to do much. We need to get into spaces like literature, film, and television. Um,
And in regards to literature and all that stuff too, this is going to be a tough opinion for a lot of libertarians to swallow. I think we have enough philosophy for right now.
yeah, yeah,
Use
no,
these things as a guide.
yeah, no. You're 100% correct. Like, because, and that's kind of the trap of the libertarian ideology, is that when you first discover it, your prime interest is the philosophy. So a lot of creators tend to focus on that. But we need to step away from that to make it fun. Like, just because you are extremely interested in Austrian economics and voluntarist philosophy doesn't mean that, like, a random outsider is going to be. You have to make it fun. You have to make it interesting. It was something that I was like really kicking my own ass over when I was writing my first book, because I was like, I want to make sure that the philosophy is there, even if it's like obviously there. Like I have two characters that are like anarchists in the book, but it makes sense given the setting and the context. It's not just like anarchism's great and here's why. Let me give you 15 pages of exposition.
No, you make the character interesting, and you make sure that they're the story that is being told. How can I put this without like beating someone over the head with it? You basically you introduce someone to individuality, so to speak, because
Yeah.
say for instance, the best I could say is, are you familiar with the book The Giver?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that might be the best unintentional libertarian book ever written.
Yeah,
Because
probably.
really, when you go into it, it's a story about individuality in the face of a collective and a totalitarian system. It's anti-war, and frankly, it's about the main character escaping that system. And nothing in it, at no point were the ideas of liberty, individuality, or any of that stuff preached to me as a kid when I got introduced to that book. It was only years later when I discovered all this stuff that I kind of saw what I had, read about in that book now being expressed in the political world.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
I think that's how it's done, really.
Yeah. Like I said, like you have to just make it good. That's and I mean any good ANCAP should know that. Like your product just needs to be good and enjoyable. Like you need to set your agenda aside to make the product good first and foremost, and then work on maybe weaving whatever elements you want in there. But ultimately it needs to be enjoyable, and that's like step one in this whole culture thing.
Well, I think that was the thing that in many ways I think this is what hurt the Ron Paul movement a lot. Was a lot of it was very yay liberty kind of stuff. None of it was really infused. The closest I think libertarianism ever got was with Amy Allen and the Interrupters, at least kind of getting in there a little bit.
Hmm.
But I can't really think of much else from that time frame that made me go, yeah, that's something that's along the lines of those ideas of the Ron Paul Revolution. And this is just me looking back at the Ron Paul Revolution and thinking like, what could have been done better, that we could do
Yeah.
better. Um,
Yeah. Music is a space that really needs uh, libertarian ideals. There's a really fucking awesome thrash metal band called Havoc, HAVOK. Um, the guitarist, singer, songwriter Dave Sanchez has a podcast called Riffs or Die. He's a cool dude. And like they have like some overtly libertarian songs. Like it's got a song called "I Am the State" and like "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death." Um, but it's nice to have a liberty-minded voice in the metal sphere, because metal used to be like about individuality, and then for some reason it kind of like took like the punk left turn where it was like, all right,
uh,
we're all commies now, and it's like, what the fuck is this?
so
Like
by the way, as someone,
I love Gojira to death, but like just don't go to their Wikipedia page. Just listen to their music and just don't explore anything else about them. Just enjoy them for what they are.
okay, Ryan, I just want to say all my friends are metalheads and I'm a total punk. So this, I totally get what you're talking about there. And honestly, with the punk scene has always been very interesting with that, where I don't even know where to say where things changed, because it was like back in the day, even with bands like The Clash, I feel like there was kind of like this fuck yeah, like The Clash, Spanish Bombs, you know what I mean? Like that sort of left wing, some of their more left wing songs.
They had an album called Sandinista,
I
so
know, I know, I
you
know,
know, like
I know, and that's a great album too. That's the
it is.
crazy thing.
That's
I didn't even know what it was named after when I was younger.
You did well because you didn't
I
know what
was
the
young, man. I was
Sandinistas
young.
were. Yeah, I
I
mean,
was
how were you
young, man.
supposed to know? I
No, I was.
grew up on punk. Like my parents lived in Germany for several years before I was born, so they came back with like like the Dead Kennedys, the Vandals, Kraftwerk. They were in Germany. The Clash and all this kind of shit. So I grew up on punk music, and then I kind of graduated towards metal. I still have a love of punk. Like I love like Gogol Bordello and I love Pennywise. I love West Coast punk. It's like it's kind of like a soft spot for me. Um, but like I love the music and like half of the message. They're like, yeah, fuck the government, anarchy, except for the giant overarching state we would need to enforce our communist utopia. Like Jello Biafra is the dumbest, most educated motherfucker in
Are
that
we?
whole scene.
I mean, you just reminded me of Rage Against the Machine. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, rage for the corporate press.
Rage
Yeah.
on behalf of the corporate machine.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I remember there was a time when I was younger that I actually liked their music because it was just, it was good fuck you to the government music. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then as the years went on, it's almost like I wish they had just kind of disappeared after they had broken up.
Yeah, like
Like
honestly,
somewhere
they
around Prophets of Rage, I was just like, this
they should
is
have faded
horrible.
into obscurity after Evil Empire, and they would have just lived on as legends for putting out
Honestly,
like a really great record for that time. Because
what
Evil Empire was fantastic. I love that record, but it's like, man, Tom Morello really makes it hard to just like enjoy Rage Against the Machine. But like, I can put on like Down Rodeo and just have a good time. But yeah, when they're just like, take the power back, and it's like, yeah, except you want to take the power from me and give it to the fucking powers that be.
yeah. It's. I will say this though. One, I've always there's certain musicians that I've always wondered about what their views on certain things are. Just because, for instance, you ever heard of the band Slightly Stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a few. There's been a few lines I've heard in their stuff where I've always wondered, it's like, maybe are you guys more liberty minded? Like, what the fuck's your thing? The reason every day is not a holiday is because the government they steal your pay.
Yeah, well, there's from what I have heard from some metal musicians in the sphere, and again, I'm
What the
not,
left wing?
I'm not, I'm not getting paid for this. It's just uh, Dave Sanchez with the Riffs or Die podcast. He has a lot of other musicians from bands that you're like, whoa, wait a minute, this guy's like liberty oriented, and they come on the show and they talk about like, especially with current events and stuff, he's very like anti lockdowns, mandates, all this kind of shit, and he'll bring like the guitarist of X band, or excuse me, the singer of Y band, and they're like, yeah, no, this shit's all nonsense. And one of the recurring themes from a lot of the guests on his show is that members of these bands will be like, yeah, there's actually quite a few of us out there that have very similar, if not like even more liberty-minded views, but
So
we can't express them because whether it's somebody in the band that's like, no, I'm a commie and we're not going to do that, or just the whole scene as a whole. Because like, if you look at metalsucks.net, back in the day they used to write articles about like reviews for a metal album. They'd be like, oh, this song was really good, this one was kind of weak. And nowadays they're just like, here's how the new Mastodon record reminded me that like Mao wasn't that bad and Marx is cool. And it's like,
oh
what the
god.
fuck am I reading? Is the album good or not? you know? Again,
In many ways, I
it
think
has invaded the culture.
it has invaded the culture, and in many ways, I hope that those types of things will wake people up because there's a level of like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? Whether it be
Mm-hmm.
Mao, Marx, all the fucking communist writers and shit like that. There's a lot of people who they kind of get activated only from the pure shock of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we keep on seeing these absolutely outlandish articles from the corporate press and like things like that, I think it's just amazing. But in regards to the music scene and everything we see there, I mean, what you just described with like all these people from the metal scene, having views like that, but not really sharing them out in the open. That is something that I have heard time and time again from so many different people in so many different spheres of the arts. And it's insane. It's almost like there's this social pariah thing. And
Yeah.
I kind of get it. I've been on the shit end of that. Bring an Ayn Rand book to a rehearsal, that comes up. Um, I'm not even
Unless you're
joking.
Rush.
I'm not
Yeah.
even joking about that. But but you, like there's somewhat of this thing where it's like, how did this stigma come? Like the left talks about shaming this, shaming that, kink shaming, whatever shaming. I mean, fuck. There's been an ideological shaming that seems to have been carried out successfully.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, honestly, like, if anything, we should be the people that don't give a
Well,
fuck
I mean,
about bringing these ideas to light.
one of the most shocking things to me, I just want to say this because you brought up the metal thing, was learning just how many liberty-minded folks there are in the wrestling sphere as well. Because we occasionally talk about pro wrestling on here too. I don't know if you're in that at all.
I was when I was younger. I stopped right around like the Stone Cold Steve Austin and Goldberg days. So
Well, maybe you can
more years ago than I'd like to admit out loud. So
maybe you can join us for what we're planning on doing to Rob on our other show, where we show him things from modern wrestling to get his reaction. And we already
oh,
kind of test rode this, but didn't record it.
oh god.
But there's like all these crazy videos we'll find from like Japan of like exploding barbed wire death matches and stuff like that. Like it gets crazy, man. It gets crazy when you go to other countries. Like,
Japan doesn't fuck around with anything they do.
The Japanese and Mexico, man. Like
Yeah.
those two
Yeah.
places. But anyways, like with the you always hear about Glenn Jacobs Kane being like the big Liberty wrestler or whatever. There are some other wrestlers who I've interacted with or heard stories from or one thing or another. I'm just like, I'm kind of amazed. Like fuck it, he'll message if you talk to him about it on Instagram. He doesn't really. He might say something, but Killer Cross, that was a Ron Paul supporter.
Oh.
Voted for Jorgensen this time around too. Funny
Wow.
enough, but like, I don't know, man. It's funny to see that there's like this entire thing that's out there as well, but like no one really talks about it. But talk about unionization and how we need to unionize the wrestling world. You're a hero to Twitter, baby.
Oh god.
I'm not even kidding.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
It's awful.
Talk about the media and stuff like that. It's amazing how all these wrestling outlets and all these different things have really made the idea of unionization look so glamorous to wrestling fans. Oh, it'd be so, or even wrestlers too, I'm sure to some degree. But at the same time, my theory, I don't know, man. The whole unionization thing is just it's bollocks.
I'm biased because I have had to work alongside unions for like a third of my life.
I'm sorry.
I worked in transportation and logistics for 13 years. So I was on like the administrative end. I was doing like vessel planning and like container ship nonsense. But like all of our labor were unionized. So I'm biased because in my opinion, union workers, at least in this industry, like I'm sure you've got some dude who's a fucking pipe fitter in the chat and he's going to be like, why is he talking shit on my goddamn union? I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about
you do your job. Your union is a leech on you.
I'm talking about longshoremen and like warehouse forklift operators, recoupers, restacker operators, all that kind of shit.
And working men, throw off the chains of your union.
These people are the whiniest motherfuckers I have ever met in my entire life. I'm talking like 40 and 50 something year old men that gossip like fucking 16-year-old high school girls. And it's like, dude, you're getting paid twice what you're actually worth to pick up pallets and put them on trucks, or to fucking wave at the crane operator to say, okay, lower it down. Yep. All right, there we go. And then haul it to a door or haul it to a truck or whatever you're doing. you're getting paid twice, sometimes triple of the actual value that you provide in terms of the whole operation. And then people are like, why are bananas getting to like $6 a bunch? Well, because the fucking 15 people that get that single pallet of 48 cases of bananas off a ship and into a warehouse and then eventually onto a truck are paid astronomically more than they're worth. And then they bitch and complain over everything. Grievances left and right for Christ knows what. I mean, they're absolutely terrible. And my biggest gripe with unions is that they don't reward skill. They reward time. So it's not like oh, the best guys get their pick of what work they want to do. No, it goes by seniority. Well, I've been there for 25 years. It's like, okay, well, are you any good at it after 25 years? Because this dude that's only been here for 3 fucking blows you out of the water. Why do we have him doing shit work while you're up in the important machine slowing everything down? Because, well, that's what the union says we do. And it's absurd. It is absurd. The whole structure is dumb. I get why they existed during the World War. It was like, all right, yeah, let's maybe like have a thing that prevents slave labor. But nowadays, not so much.
Well, now it's just kind of it's in many ways it's another political system.
Oh
'Cause
no, I have long stated that unions are just political action committees disguised as like
you're not wrong.
worker relations organizations. They are political PACs disguised as like, oh, we're going to take care of you. Because my uncle was a pipe fitter, and they were like, you better vote Democrat, and he was like, you can vote my ass. Like, I'm not voting for a Democrat. But they like some of them get violent.
Well, I, it's funny you bring that up because we've seen that like the craziness you see of some of the union people. For one, the whole right to work thing makes no sense to me. You want to prevent someone's right to work just because they aren't in a union. That's absolutely evil, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But that's absolutely evil. Anyone should have the right to work wherever they like. They shouldn't have to be a part of some group. That's just absolutely just. I cannot fathom thinking that the other person in that scenario would be the bad person.
You can't work in this industry unless you pay us dues.
Yeah,
That's evil.
pay up. Like they're no better than the government in many ways.
Yeah, they're
Are you, are
micro
you
governments.
are you? This is really obscure, but are you familiar with the book "Shit Show: The Country's Burning" and the Ratings Are Great by Charlie LaDuff at all?
I have heard of it, but I have not read it.
I don't know. I might have brought it up in the past because it's a book that I've recommended to a lot of people just because of this is going to be my libertarian autism showing here in a second. But
All right, I'm going on
basically,
Amazon to bookmark it right now.
yeah, go check the shit out, and the audio book is great too. But basically, at one point in the book, it's very early on. The main character, well, the journalist Charlie LaDuff, he ends up going. It starts off with him talking about the union situations in the North and what's going on up there, and you think he's building up to some pro-union argument, and then he just turns around and smacks the unions because of all the shit in the South when they tried to expand down south. Basically, the Southern industrialists saw unions and thought, fuck, I don't want that, and started giving all their workers all the things that the unions were. So when the unions came and tried to basically seize power.
Oh, with us, you'll get all this. And they were like, bitch, we're getting all that already.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened.
That's
It's hilarious.
spectacular.
It's great. And what's funny is the unions just don't seem to get it. Like as he highlights in the book, it's like that's where you think he's building this big pro-union argument. It's like, well, you that's probably what and then he's just like, that's probably what the unions think. But of course, no one will tell them the honest truth that it's because of X, Y, Z, blah blah.
Yeah.
It's a great little bitch slap. But it's funny how that is. Like, I don't know. Here in the South, the whole union thing, it's not like it was in my home state of Michigan, which is very union heavy. I mean, for fuck's sake, my grandfather's union back in the day.
Because Michigan was like an American made production center.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
like there
Motor
was a
City,
lot of like American factory work there, so
but it wasn't
they
just stuff like that. I mean, dude, my grandpa was a butcher, and Jimmy Hoffa negotiated their contract.
Jesus H Christ.
Like the fucking butcher, man. He wasn't like part of the
Yeah.
team. Like I remember my grandpa telling me, I'm like seriously? Like it's like, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yo,
I'll trust
do
unions
you
to find out what happened.
do you have any more products you wanna pimp? Because I'm like
Pass it out.
I know you have a 2 drink minimum, but I'm on like 6 and I gotta hit the bathroom.
Oh shit, dude. Okay, let's wrap this up then. But yeah, as far as plugging products go, once again, just go check out dripcannabinoids.com, drip delta 8. Use code word Mitch at checkout, MITCH, to get 10% off. Also, go check out the Libertarian Frontier on TeePublic. Soon to be rebranding. Um, Working on some stuff. Check out the TeePublic, but there's probably going to be a lot more coming on some other avenues where TeePublic doesn't allow me to make certain things like hats and whatnot. So stay tuned, and also go check out my Twitter, Mitch Connor JLo, down there. There we go. If you're watching, down there. Anyway, everyone, Ryan, you want to plug anything? You got a book?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I got a book that I published right at the start of the pandemic and ended up being pretty prophetic in a lot of ways. It's called Project Manticore. You can find it on Amazon. You can get a Kindle, paperback, hardback, whatever you want. Um, and I just recently launched a business. I do remote professional services, pretty much anything you can imagine: graphic design, data entry, business management, hardware, software consultation. You can go to my website, autonomyvirtual.com, and if you see the service in the list, send us an email. If you don't see it, send us an email because those lists are not exhaustive. My wife and I have a combined like 30 years of experience in a whole shitload of different fields, and we are primarily targeting small businesses and especially liberty-minded people. So help us help you grow and see what we can do.
Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch us next week. I don't know who I'm going to have on yet. Really need to work out the schedule, but I'll hit up Trip. Maybe we'll have him on. Anyways, good night, everybody.